Professor John Durant at Imperial College in London has made a study of British attitudes to science, and his last big survey revealed some big gaps.
Only about a third of our sample knew that antibiotics, one of the most important classes of drugs, don't kill viruses, they only kill bacteria. Only about a third knew the Earth goes around the Sun once a year. And less than half, actually, in 1988, were able to say that DNA is a substance that has to do with living things. And those, I think, are quite surprising and perhaps quite eye-opening to scientists.
I find this lack of scientific understanding worrying. And what's worse, as a society, we seem happy to tolerate such ignorance. I've noticed a double standard in our society with respect to science. Earlier this year, I was on a late-night television talk show, and I mentioned the names of Watson and Crick. And the chairman promptly stopped me and said, for the benefit of viewers, who are Watson and Crick? Now, if I'd said I'd just been to the Cézanne exhibition, she wouldn't have dreamed of saying, for the benefit of viewers, who was Cézanne. And that double standard matters. Not that we should value Cézanne less, but we should seek to value science more. No one knows that better than that great messenger of science, Sir David Attenborough.
Now I'm getting up into the canopy, into the world of the birds of paradise.
He feels strongly that a practical knowledge of science and its uses would benefit everybody.
And here's the top. The birds are in another emergent tree just like this one, and I've got an absolutely clear view of them. I am quite sure that people will get a greater pleasure not only from knowing how things work, but from being able to take competent decisions about their own life. I mean, you ought to be able to know how to repair a fuse. You ought to be able to know roughly what goes wrong with your car when something goes wrong with it. I confess I'm not very good at that myself. But you ought to have some idea as to the way these things work. And that is science.
The point is that this kind of ignorance means we don't understand what science can tell us and what it cannot. And that is serious because science is used by journalists and especially politicians to persuade us that they are right.
The issue is no longer a question of the safety of British beef. The best available evidence demonstrates that British beef and beef products can be safely eaten by consumers both here and around the world.
Do you believe him? You need to know a bit about science to be able to answer that. I don't mean the latest facts about BSE research, but at least enough about scientific method to know that you cannot claim certainty from science. Science can never say the evidence demonstrates, for instance, that beef is definitely safe to eat. It can only offer probabilities and explain where current evidence points. It's then up to us as individuals to decide what to do with that information.
What's very important, I think, is that these decisions aren't left to scientists or politicians or committees of scientists and politicians and bishops. Those aren't the people that should be making these decisions. Society as a whole should be. And I don't think society can make those decisions in a sensible way unless they have a basic understanding about the principles of science, not the details, but the principles.
This shouldn't be anything to worry about. Despite the headlines, science isn't only or even usually about dangers and difficulties. On the contrary, the more you find out about science, the more you realize that it can be positively inspiring.